Hi, welcome to my first video as I document my pilgrimage on the Camino Frances in May-June 2025. A little bit about me, I'm Graham, I'm from Tasmania, although I'm originally from Western Australia. I'm the husband to my beautiful wife Susie, father to 5 wonderful children, and Poppy to 3 gorgeous grandchildren. A little bit more about me, I joined the army when I was 17, and in my late 30s I became a lawyer, and also roughly around about the same time we became smallhold farmers on a 50-acre property down near Albany in Western Australia. I retired, I'm now retired and enjoying life in beautiful Tassie. What I hope to do every day is just to document where I've been, what I've seen, and also give a little bit of an insight or history to some of the villages and towns that I either pass through or stay in, such as this one, which is Saint-Jean-Pied-de-Port, which roughly translates to St. John at the foot of the pass. What I also hope to do is just to let the scenery do the talking and keep my head out of most of the videos that I make. And please be gentle, because this is my first YouTube video and it could be pretty awful. Anyway, I hope you enjoy. Nothing that I had read about or watched YouTube videos about the first day could have prepared me for what it was going to actually be like. It was very difficult, not impossible, and certainly not the hardest thing I've ever done, but it was incredibly difficult at times. It involved about 20 odd kilometres of uphill, a few little flat bits, but mainly uphill, some very steep, some more gentle. Perhaps one of the hardest parts was actually the last 3 or 4 kilometres into Roncesvalles, because that was downhill and it presented a whole different type of difficulty from going uphill. Burning the calves on the way up, and then on the way down, the knees started to hurt. One thing I can say is that hiking poles are an essential. The extra drive and push you get up the hill with them, and the stability and control when you're descending on rocky paths means that without them it would make it so much harder. But despite the difficulty of the first day, it was everything and more than I hoped it would be. The scenery was outstanding. The company who I was walking with, which included Vince, who I've known for 50 years, Alex, a guy from Austin, Texas, who we met in Bayonne, a couple of Hungarians, and many others, made it an incredible day. Hopefully, all the days after this are going to be the same. And it's also awe-inspiring to think that pilgrims have walked this route for the last 1,000 years or so, and the privations they would have gone through in walking this when we've got all this modern equipment, and their footwear and their clothing was so rudimentary. Perhaps though the most fascinating aspect of this Camino so far is the layers of history that you come across on the trail. Being from Australia, where our Western history is relatively short, here there are layers upon layers of it. Besides the pilgrim history, where Roncesvalles has been traditionally a safe haven for pilgrims for the last 1,000 years or so. But before that, there was much, much more occurring in this area, especially in terms of military history. For example, in 788, the forces of Emperor Charlemagne, the Holy Roman Emperor, were returning to France after having been in Spain fighting the Moors. Now, despite assurances to the Basque peoples that they wouldn't attack Pamplona, they damaged some of the walls of Pamplona, and they also destroyed a couple of villages. This upset the Basque peoples, obviously, and the Basque forces surrounded the rearguard of Charlemagne's forces and destroyed them to the man. And this included Charlemagne's nephew, Roland, who is now a legendary French military figure. Following that, in 1813, 40,000 troops of Napoleon's forces went up the route that we took today, up what is known as the Napoleon Way, to engage with the British forces of the Duke of Wellington in the vicinity of Roncesvalles. Unfortunately, Wellington had split his forces and it was a victory for the French. Later, as you can see in the photos, I've included a couple of gun emplacements, and they date from the Franco forces in the Spanish Civil War in the 1930s. But perhaps one of the not exciting, but one of the most interesting discoveries of the day were the emplacements that are pictured. They were the concrete blocks. They were all up and down in the vicinity of the Spanish-French border, and they were facing back into France. Now, it didn't seem initially what they actually were, but they were covering re-entrance and obvious pathways up to the road leading to the border. It wasn't until we came across the memorial for 3 French resistance guys who had been tortured and executed in that vicinity that it appeared that possibly these were observation posts for the Germans during World War II, because Spain was neutral during World War II, and that it would be an obvious route to get up to that road to get over the border to the safe haven. I'm not going to absolutely say that that's what those emplacements were, but it does appear, based on that they all had interlocking arcs to mutually support to cover dead ground, that is perhaps what they were. Anyway, I'll do some more research once I get home to see if that's exactly what they were. I hope you've enjoyed today's video. Thank you.